Hello everybody, I'm Gwen Campbell-Mindes. Welcome to Gwen's Bookish Ramblings. So, last book of the Lyra novels. And this is the last book of just a little bit adjacent to what's actually important. Because, it's just, I harp on it because it's what makes this series so interesting. It really, really is. Because, think about it. Fantasy novels, the thing that happens in fantasy novels is that what you have in a fantasy novel is almost invariably the story of, a grand hero. You get a Lord of the Rings where the ring bearer is, carrying this ring that will end Sauron. It's not going to stop a small number of orcs. It's not going to stop just one thing. This is a battle, this fight that he's on, this is an epic quest to stop the source of all evil. And so stopping the source of all evil, that's epic. When you talk about, what's going on in the rest of the novel, the whole battle, everything that Aragorn's doing, Aragorn is fighting the combined forces of everybody. While Frodo is sort of trekking his way onward off on his own particular quest, which is epic, Aragorn is facing off with epic armies and epic armies of the dead, and everything is epic. When you read Harry Potter, Harry is the linchpin of all existence. When you read Narnia, the Narnia books, when you read the Narnia books, or at least when you read some of the Narnia books, you're dealing with central epic things. A Horse and His Boy is weirdly, it is kind of a little bit off-center, which is what makes it good. And the story of what's happening in, and let's be honest, Voyages of the Dawn Treader is really just a travelogue. But most fantasy novels kind of have this epic, you are at the center of everything story. And all of these have some aspect of them that really very much feels, to me at least, like you're just a little bit off from genuinely being epic. That whatever's going on may be important, and nobody can objectively say it's not important, but it's not the kind of important, it's not the same quality of important that you get in most fantasy novels, and it's not the same quality of important that you sometimes find in others of Patricia Reedy's novels, where in others of her novels, whatever's going on is important, but there isn't an epic final battle that's either happened just before this, or is going to happen just after this, or is happening somewhere else, or this is a small skirmish that will kind of avoid the massive epic thing later, so I guess it's really important, but it's not, it's not like a centerpiece. And that's the thing, is that they're really, really important, but none of them feel like centerpieces except to the individuals involved in them. So the Raven Ring, you have one of the Silhar, or Kilhar, probably Silhar, thinking about it. And these are a mountain-dwelling group of warriors. They're the traditional sword part of a sword and sorcery bundle. And so you have a small family that gets the news that the mother who basically told everybody, one last time, I'm going out to war one last time because we need this money, and if I do this one last thing, then we get the money and I won't ever have to go again. So they get the news that she's died, and the eldest daughter has to basically go and collect her things. So they go and they collect her thing. Ellerit goes to Ciaran, and she goes there to collect her mother's things, and in the process, you wind up with this complex plot of this one wizard who has decided that he needs to get a hold of this ring that's a family ring that belonged to Ellerit's mother. And he decides to do all kinds of things to try to get the ring, only, Ellerit keeps avoiding giving it to him or letting it be stolen or whatever. And he's basically one of those idiot dupes, one of those people who says, I have discovered a connection to, the Shadowborn creatures of legend, things we have told terrifying stories about them. Yes, I bothered to look up what the shadow things are called, so Shadowborn, there you go. Because, me, memory, notes. Anyways, this guy who's doing this he's one of those people that you look at and you think, how is this a good idea? Every single legend you have says that these are super powered, super dangerous things that take over everything and will destroy all life as we know it. Why would you think you could control that? And if you can control it, maybe then they're not as powerful as legend says, so why would you what are you, nuts? But of course, he's one of those people who does the whole mwahahaha, I have power, I shall get more power, and nothing will stop me because, things like common sense don't factor in. Anyways, so this whole story, though, is basically Ellerit going around saying, why is everybody so weird? Why are these people acting like I can't defend myself? Because one of the people that she makes the acquaintanceship of is a young nobleman who, being a young nobleman, is used to dealing with young noble women who are very rarely able to defend themselves with, a knife and crow's feet, which are, if you're wondering, crow's feet are basically shuriken. So, little metal star things that you pitch at stuff and kills them, because that's what shuriken are, only they're called crow's feet because alternate universe, and it's very pseudo-medieval European-ish. And very Dungeons and Dragons-y. Anyways, which, as I said last week, if you read the... because at the end of this particular oh yes, I forgot. Here's the cover, Raven Ring. It's a ring with a raven on it. Because this is all about that particular ring, which apparently has the ability to defend to some extent against Shadowborn power or something. Nobody really knows, but it doesn't matter because the ring gets destroyed by the end of the book. Well, okay, fine. Anyways, where was I? Nobleman, there's the nobleman, and his name is Danner, something. I don't even know how to say that. Anyway, so he kind of develops a crush on her, but it's played in the book to a certain extent as the crush of, the exotic unknown and the girl who plays difficult to get, and so, because the young man who's chasing after her has to actually put in effort, he's way more interested, which, I mean, the fact that he's more interested in somebody who isn't just going to fall over and let him walk all over him is, on the one hand, it speaks well of a person's personality, but on the other hand, it speaks very ill of him because he's only interested in her because she didn't sort of bend over backwards for him. And in the end, Ellerit kind of sort of sets off on a kind of sort of romance with this other guy that she met because the two of them spend half the book competing over her for, because they're guys, and apparently guys tend to act like bighorn sheep. The guys in this particular book are really, really like bighorn sheep. I mean, this is really, really classic two guys fighting over an attractive girl thing, where they're both trying to one up each other and trying to make the other one look bad, and basically will only work together because, she sort of says that, I want you to work together, and so they're sort of like, well, okay, if you want us to. I mean, you wind up liking, the book does do a decent job at making you like Carvonen better from Ellerit's perspective, precisely because he never once underestimates her. That any underestimations that may happen in the course of this book are not underestimations of the, well, she's just a girl so she can't do this sort, or because I know more things than other people, therefore she could not possibly. That, he doesn't once underestimate her, and he clearly thinks of her as equal, but, with a different skill set than he has. So the romance, such as it is in this, actually, I think, develops a lot better than most of the romances in this series. It's still a little abrupt, but I feel like they spent a little bit more time together and a little bit more time getting to know each other than some of the other romances in this. I mean, most of this series, let's just go back for a second. Daughter of Witches doesn't have romance in it, but Shadow Magic does, and it's perfunctory, and the Harp of Imac Thistle also feels a little perfunctory. Caught in Crystal, it's less perfunctory because you know that she knew this guy that she has fallen in love with. You know that she knew him before, but they really, it's very glossed over, the whole process. In the Raven Ring, it's really only a couple of days, and you can pass this off to an extent, as it not so much being a matter of, they have actually fallen in love, as she's willing to let him try to romance her to some extent. So it's a little bit better, but it is still, it's a little bit too much like she, took the bighorn sheep that hadn't managed to give himself nearly as much brain damage and said, okay, well, you haven't managed to knock yourself out as much as the other guy, so I guess you're coming with me. But the part of this that makes it feel sideways, to get back to the point that I harp on with all of these books, is Ellerit isn't on any grand mission. Her mother wasn't really on any grand mission either. Her mother was just an officer in the army. And, probably had a certain amount of, power and wherewithal within the army, but she was an officer in the army. She wasn't the general, and she wasn't the hero going off on her own, and Ellerit isn't that either. Ellerit is just a somewhat grief-stricken young woman who has come out there to collect her mother's things. And so she collects her mother's things. And then all of this stuff happens, and they find out that a Shadowborn may be behind it, and that there's some power behind it, but it's not facing off with the Shadowborn. It was basically just this one wizard who's getting up to trouble, and I suppose if he had gotten away with it, you might have had a Shadowborn at some point, but heroism of this sort isn't very epic, and it's not the kind of thing that people write grand tales about. It's, we stoppered the leak before anything came of it, not we halted a flood in its tracks. And so once again, it's just a little bit sideways. And with less than 30 seconds to go, that's the end of the Lyra novels. And next week, I will be doing some book that's real literature, so you can all not look forward to that. And I'll see you all next week.